Well, hello everybody. Jason up, New 80s Revolution Cave. It's Tuesday. It is Tuesday. We are going to venture into the world of memories as we kind of talk about a version of Hey, Do You Remember? I was thinking the other day, I was talking to a patient of mine. Don't do that. I was talking to a patient of mine, and I don't know how we got on the topic, but they talked about where they met their wife, and they met them at the mall when they were an employee in the 80s and or in the 90s or so, late 80s. And they talked about working at KB and Timeout. And I was like, oh, really? And then that got me thinking about stores that don't exist anymore. And there's a whole list of stores. That's not what we do here. We talk about memories of those stores that don't exist anymore. And we went to the mall a while back, you and I. We walked through the mall, and I showed you where the old Timeout was and where the KB toy store was. But there were so many other stores in that mall, and so many other stores outside the mall that I remember as a kid and have very specific memories of. So we're going to talk about those specific memories on Hey, do you remember those? I don't know. Do we use the word defunct? Do we say defunct? Do you remember department stores of the 80s that are no longer with us? Yeah, I guess that'll be the working title, whatever. We'll see. The first one, and I want to know memories too. I don't want you to just say, oh, I remember Kmart. Yeah, okay. I remember Kmart too. But what about it? What about it? Kmart. Let's start with Kiddie City. Let's start with Kiddie City. That's on my list. Lionel Kiddie City. We had two here in Rochester, New York, which I didn't know. There's a newspaper here. I think the other day I just Googled Kiddie City just for the fun of it, and an article came up about Kiddie City in Rochester. It was from an old newspaper article about chains that are no longer here. Is the dog outside? Liam, is the dog outside?
What?
Is Missy outside?
I think.
Can you go get her, please?
Yeah, hang on.
No, I don't want her barking. Go get her. An article came about stores that are no longer in Rochester, and it mentioned two locations here in Rochester. And I was such a kid; I was so young that I didn't know. And the other location was way on the east side of Rochester, so I would have had no idea that even existed. But apparently, we had two in Rochester. One is currently a Home Depot. That's where our Kiddie City stood. And in fact, that plaza that had a Kiddie City also had a USA Skates, the roller rink. But we all have memories of Kiddie City. But one specific memory of Kiddie City I have is buying my second set of Hasbros from Kiddie City. I bought my first set of Hasbros from, I think, something like Caldor or Hills or something like that. Those aren't on my list. But the second round of Hasbros, specifically Hogan, Axe, and Smash, I got from Kiddie City. And if I can remember correctly, they were $4.99. I'm pretty sure that Hasbros were $4.99 or $4.49 or whatever. They were never any more expensive than that from what I remember. Got her?
Yo, yeah.
Okay. So Kiddie City had Hasbros, and that's where I got those three that I mentioned. The other things, both Toys R Us and Kiddie City had their own video game aisles. And I recall, and so do you all recall, and there's videos online about it too. You had to so you would go down the aisle, and there would be, the box art for the video game in a plastic tab, and you could flip up the tag to read the back of the box. You'd see the front of the box, and then underneath it was a coupon or so that you would take to like the video game booth. Because Toys R Us had this big enclosed glass cabinet with all of the video game stuff, and there was an employee standing there, and you'd have to give them the ticket, and they'd give you the game, which I just love. I think that's so cool. Kmart, folks. Kmart was a very special store. Kmart was a very special store. I remember in like seventh and eighth grade, Kmart started becoming the most unpopular store amongst kids, amongst clothes and students. And if you if you wanted to be made fun of, you would be called Kmart. So Kmart was actually an insult in like eighth grade, ninth grade. And you would like your mom had to take you to the mall to get you clothes. And if you got if you didn't get popular clothing, you would be made fun of, and it would be said that you shopped at Kmart for your clothes. And it spread so much that I think people were throwing themselves off of buildings if they were attached to Kmart clothing. Um, it got so bad that I refused to even go into Kmart as a 10th grader, a ninth and 10th grader. If my mom had to run, or if my grandma had to run to Kmart to get something, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't be seen in Kmart. It was just wrong. So Kmart became an insult in high school and in junior high. Prior to those days, now I'd give anything to go into a Kmart and just walk around. But prior to those days, and back to the clothing, we're so dumb. I mean, kids are just so dumb. Because what did Kmart have? They had, they probably had Levi's or Lee jeans or whatever. They probably had the same stuff that any store would have. But back then you had to get your. Now kids are buying their clothes from Goodwill. But imagine being a kid back in the day, and if you didn't have a shirt that looked like it came from the mall, everybody assumed it came from Kmart, and you were dead.
Bunch of douches.
Yeah, exactly. But Kmart was extremely special as a kid for one particular reason. My friend Howie, we've talked about many times. Anytime Howie and I had a sleepover or a get together at his house, we would walk up to Kmart. He lived about a half a mile from Kmart, maybe less. And this is interesting. He lived on a busy road, and that busy road where Kmart sat intersected with another extremely busy road. So we, as 9, 10-year-old kids, were walking up two very busy roads without sidewalks, up to a very busy plaza that sat on an extremely busy Chilai Avenue to go to Kmart. And we would go with absolutely no money. We would go straight to the toys, obviously, and straight to the action figure aisle, and we would just stand there. And the crazy part is we had most of the stuff that they had. Kmart would always have, the LJNs, but I always remember, and Howie and I could still laugh about it today. Kmart had Jesse Ventura and Greg Valentine all the time. Never sold out of Jesse Ventura or Greg Valentine. They just always had those two. And we would still go and look at the carded Jesse Venturas and Greg Valentines as if we didn't have those figures. But we would still just go and stare at them. G.I. Joes, Kmart had plenty of those. But again, we didn't have any money. And in fact, I remember one time we did have money. Between the two of us, we had about $4. And we stood there for hours trying to figure out what to buy, even though our options were limited to about 3 things. And so we both decided to pool our money together and buy one G.I. Joe weapons pack, because that was about $2.99, I think.
How much was a wrestler back then?
$7.99.
So you did not have a
I had them already. I already had the wrestlers that Kmart had. So we bought a G.I. Joe weapons pack, and that's it. That's what we did. That Kmart at the time had a slushy machine right by the exit. Not Slushy though. What's the other brand with the dog? Not Hush Puppy. Slush Puppy.
Yeah, Slush Puppy.
It had a Slush Puppy machine. And of course it had vending machines, and for whatever reason we'd try to put a dime in and get a bouncy ball out and bounce it back and forth to each other as we walked back home. So Kmart was the best back in 8, 9, 10 years old, and then became awful in high school, sadly. Um, Gold Circle. Gold Circle is an East Coast store that has been gone for a while, maybe since '90 or so. Gold Circle was just a Walmart. It was a discount store, and I don't have a lot of memories of Gold Circle. I have a T-shirt from Gold Circle, which is pretty cool. I would love a piece of memorabilia from Gold Circle. I love a bag or something like that. But the only memory I have of Gold Circle is going in on a random day, and I think it was winter time or something, because as we were walking through the clothing section, above the clothing section was they were, like you see clothes on the wall. Like, go to Walmart and look at the men's clothing section. There's racks, but then there's walls, and there's like stuff hanging off the walls too. Well, at Gold Circle they had that, and the reason I think it was winter is because my brain is remembering winter coats. So let's just say a wall of winter coats. Well, above that wall that was like a shelf almost, like you could put stuff up, bigger items, maybe overstock. And as I was walking through the winter coat section, I looked up, and the whole upper ledge was LJN tag team box sets of Hogan and Hillbilly Jim, just covering the whole children's section. Overstock of Hogan and Hillbilly tag team set, which were probably horrible sellers, because by that point everybody already had Hogan and Hillbilly Jim, so especially Hogan. And like we said before, your mom is not buying the tag team set for $20 just to get you a Hillbilly Jim. That's not happening, because you already have Hogan. And you know what? I bet you, what was the price of those tag team sets? Because the figures were $7.99 in my memory, so the tag team sets couldn't be $20. They had to be cheaper than, so $7.99 and $7.99, that's $16, right? So it had to be cheaper than $16. It couldn't, for the deal. So they were probably $14.99 or something would be my guess, for the tag team set, is my guess. But that's the only memory of Gold Circle that I have, is that ridiculous overstock of Hogan Hillbilly tag team sets. Service merchandise we've talked about before. My dad got me Don Morocco from Service Merchandise, but this memory also involves Howie. We were again having a sleepover, and for whatever reason, his dad needed to go to Service Merchandise, and we went with him. And we ended up getting a floaty for the pool, a boat, the boat that we actually have, this big raft. I think it's called the River. No, the River Raft. We have that. It's a boat, and I'll show you a picture of it. But it's a boat, and it came with 2 oars, and it was huge, and it didn't fit very well in an above ground pool, which is what Howie had and what I have now. And our boat doesn't fit that well in an above ground pool either. Yeah, it's okay. But Howie and I invented a game. We would both be in the boat, and we would have a ball. It was like a rubber ball that floated, and we'd throw it, and that was a bomb. And you had about 10 seconds. The other guy had about 10 seconds to dive out of the boat, get to the bomb, to defuse it before it went off. So, you, depending on how far you threw it in the pool, you might give your guy 7 seconds, 8 seconds to get there, and you're counting 1, 2, and you got to get to the bomb before it blows up. And it was a great game. And now Liam's going to play it. It was a great game. You had to get to the bomb within 5 seconds, or else it blows up. And then if it blows up, you have to, of course, make the sound and overreact and flop around in the water, and I get a point, right? It's the beauty of childhood. And that's a huge memory from Service Merchandise, is that his dad bought us that boat that night. I don't remember blowing it up. I assume his dad blew it up somehow. You don't use your lungs to blow that up. It would take days and you'd die. So he must have had an air compressor or something. I don't remember. But all I know is, so we didn't worry about that sort of thing. You didn't worry about that sort of thing. You were getting a boat. You knew it wasn't put together already. You knew it didn't already have air, but that didn't matter. You just knew that somehow the dad was going to get air into that boat, and you guys would be playing soon. That's all you cared about. Woolworths. Woolworths was in the mall that I showed you. Woolworths was also in a plaza that lived near me, an outdoor mall. And I have a couple of memories of Woolworths. Very, very early memories of Woolworths would be probably when I was about 7 or 8. They had a lunch counter, and my grandmother would go to Woolworths, and we would have lunch there. And the Woolworth in Northgate Plaza in Rochester had a lunch counter, and we'd eat there. And my grandmother always got hot roast beef sandwiches. Every diner that we ever went to, anytime we ever went out to eat, she would get a hot roast beef sandwich. And basically that's, bread and roast beef and gravy all over it, and you eat it with a fork and knife. And that's what she would get every single time. The other memory of Woolworths was they had galoobs. So this has got to be like 90, 91 even. Woolworths still existed. And I remember going into Woolworths and seeing the tag team 2-packs. I remember never seeing Doom, though. Doom, I never had Doom as a kid. I had...
Doom? Like the video game?
No, Doom the wrestlers. I never had the tag team Doom ever as a kid. Ever. Never had them. Never saw them. Never had them. But you'd go there and they'd have, like Luger and Sting, and what was it, Flair and Anderson were a tag team. But they would have them as Steiners, and they'd have them very discounted. I mean, they were like $3 because it was, I think it was coming to the end of the not of the line, but I think it was coming to the end of the store, and the Galoobs just weren't selling or whatever. But never saw any other wrestlers there. Don't remember seeing any other wrestlers there, but definitely remember the Galoob tag team sets being sold at Woolworths. Finally is not a store. My patient there sparked my memory of Timeout. And I've tried to explain what Timeout is to Liam. You're fully aware of arcades. You've seen arcades. But Timeout was in my mall, and it was an arcade. And me and the guy there were talking about the change belt, how he would have a change belt on him where he could press a button and quarters would come out of his little belt. And I think this is before the days of coin machines, I think, because they would walk around with these quarter belts and you would get change from them. But Mat Mania, I didn't play at Timeout. Mat Mania, I played at a place called Olympic Bowl during my bowling league. But the one memory I have of Timeout, again, had to have been a little later in life. It had to have been maybe 92 even. I would have to look to see when this game came out. When did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game come out? The 4-player game, because I played that at Timeout for what seemed like an hour. My mom just kept giving me quarters. I was teaming up with 2 or 3 random people, and we were just beating the game. We didn't beat the game, but we were just killing it. And I just kept, Mom, I need more quarters. Like, I'm playing with the cool guys. These guys are older. I'm sweaty. We're banging away at the machine. So I don't know what year that must have been. That must have been, like I said, 90, 91 when the Turtles arcade game came out. But that's one memory I remember of Timeout. Great place. Timeout. I would love to go back and be a little bit older kid in 83, 82, 83, 84, when arcades start going nuts. I would love to be that kid with the acid wash jeans and the Def Leppard tank top, playing, just getting into the arcade world and just being, obsessed with arcade games and going there every day after school and beating high scores and competing with other guys. I would love that. I would love to experience that. All right, so that is some stores that I remember. Hey, do you remember some no longer with us department stores? Give me some memories from childhood. What toys did you get there? Did you have lunch with your grandma like I did? Let me know in the comments. We'll see you next time. Good night.